So just to introduce myself, my name is Heidi Probst and I'm a Professor of Radiotherapy and Oncology here at Sheffield Hallam. I am also currently the Director of the Health Research Institute, and I'm co-facilitating these Healthy Future lectures with my colleague, Professor John Wheat, who is the Associate Dean for Research and Innovation for the College of Health, Wellbeing and Life Sciences. The College of Health and Wellbeing and Life Sciences is reworking and enhancing its courses and curricula to ensure that our graduates are given the applied skills, knowledge and experiences to be successful in health-related employment in the future. Now, simultaneously, the university is also implementing a very exciting new research and innovation plan led by Professor Rory Duncan, with ambitions to grow our research and innovation offering at Sheffield Hallam. To grow our research and innovation offer, we need to ensure that our research aligns with the research priorities of the major research funders and the major challenges faced by communities locally, regionally, nationally, or in the global context. So there are lots of multiple factors that influence health and well-being. The Healthy Futures lecture series aims to provoke and inspire colleagues within and outside of the university on a wide range of topics relating to health in its very broadest sense. It's to challenge our assumptions of health further, pushing boundaries and sparking new and innovative ideas and connections across disciplines. So it gives me huge pleasure today to introduce one of our very own members of staff here at Hallam, Dr. Ivan Phelan. Ivan is a Principal Research Fellow and Director of the Impact VR Lab here at Hallam. His projects have developed immersive and interactive VR games designed to improve the health, well-being and lifestyles of children and adults who have been affected by neurological and musculoskeletal conditions, orthopaedic trauma and pain. Ivan has been recognised as one of the UK university's top creative spark as part of a campaign to showcase the extraordinary contribution of the country's universities to the UK's creative excellence. Recently, the Games Award Future Class of 2022 included Ivan as one of the 50 inspiring individuals who represent the bright, bold and inclusive future of video games. It's my pleasure to hand you over now to Ivan for the presentation.
Thanks very much, Heidi. So, I'll just share this. So today I'm hoping to kind of give you a bit of an idea of the work that we're doing at Impact VR. It's quite a wide range of different applications, ranging from pain distraction to rehabilitation to training. And we're kind of just, I suppose, want to give you a bit of a brief overview of all of those. It would take too long, I suppose, to go into too much detail in each one. But first of all, I'd like to just kind of give a bit of a background on VR. So VR, I suppose, for quite some time has, you might have heard things about, how it works. But if you've not, it is, it's very immersive. So once you put it on, your peripheral vision is taken up, and you get a real sense of like place and presence. Like how far away something is in VR. You could throw something over, and it would be like, I don't know, 5 foot in front of you, that kind of thing. But it's also very immersive. So like people kind of forget where they are. Like they forget like they're actually in the hospital. They just think they're in this different place. There was issues in the past with lag and things like that, where it make people feel a bit motion sick. But that's been improved a lot because the hardware is so advanced now that it's not really a problem when it comes to the hardware like it used to be. It's more down to the software. So if the software is created in a way that's moving the player without them knowing it, that can give you a bit of motion sickness. So we do our utmost to avoid all those kind of things. But that's just a general overview of what VR is like. So most people probably have had a bit of a go or are aware of how it works. But the immersion of it is very important for the work that we do. So the first project that we're going to talk about is to do with upper limb rehabilitation for children. So you have a lot of kids who, after having an injury, they may have had bad burns where they have to get stretches done throughout their lives. It could be from surgery, all manner of things. And to get the kids to do their rehabilitation, especially for young kids, it's very tricky. They just won't engage with it. And when it comes to doing it at home, they just turn off, and the physios know that they're not doing it as well. So when we spoke to the staff of Sheffield Children's Hospital, they were asking, is there any way that we could develop something in VR that could help with this? And we kind of set about speaking to them about different kind of areas that they thought, the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, of like what are the the kind of motions that they would require their patients to do that could be used in a manner, like a couple of different areas, like for different injuries and things like that. And one of the motions they showed us was reaching behind the back like this and reaching to the side and above, and kind of big wide motions like that. And we thought that's unusual. It looks like they're reaching for an arrow from a quiver. So we thought archery seems like a good fit. It's mapping those motions to a game, kind of game motions in a natural way. So we built a prototype for that. But then another motion that they showed us was tiger claw. And we kind of thought, it kind of looks like you're trying to climb a tower. So we again mapped that to a tower climbing game. And we did a prototype of it. And before we went to the hospital with this these prototypes, we did some play tests with kids first, and we brought the therapists with us to observe and to see, is there anything that we were missing? Is there any kind of big issues that we were going to run into? And when we had the kids playing it, they preferred they like both games, but they really liked the climbing game because it was exciting. But they were getting lots of big movements, and the physios were spotting things like the movement that they were getting from grabbing a rope and climbing a rope like that was a really good movement that they wanted to kind of get more of. So from those play tests, we start kind of changing what's more important and what's not important, but also issues that we found from earlier on. So for instance, like we're grown adults and we're making these games, and our arm span is much bigger than a child, but we thought we were like, compensating for that. But no, like literally the children would have to jump to try and grab things. So then we had to go back and, course correct all those things. But it was very important having the physios there throughout the design phase of this to kind of get an idea of where we're going wrong and what we need to double down on. And that's just one of the things from this project earlier on. But I'm just going to show a video that gives a little bit of context of how this all comes together, and then I'll talk a little bit more. Right back.
Ooh. Most of our kids have quite a long-term condition that they need to carry on doing their exercises for sometimes several years.
So remember to keep that one held, so tight grip on the one on your right.
And they're doing the same things day in, day out. It gets really boring, no one wants to do it. Sometimes it's painful. It's just not really fun. They want to be out playing and doing things with their friends.
It's kind of a bit more playing than exercising, even though you are still doing your exercises. Like, it's fun as well. Oh gosh,
do you need a break or anything like that? Is your arm tired or?
No, it's fine.
She didn't find it easy, whereas before she would have given things up very easily, but she wanted to keep going. She wanted to pop another balloon.
Yes, got it.
She wanted to reach that next thing, but she's just been an absolute trooper. She just has a smile on her face every day, so it kind of encourages me to be positive.
There we go.
We've had kids come in that can only get their arms up to here, and then they come in straight away and they're picking the arrows up and getting full range of movement and not even noticing. And then when we interview them after, they said that they didn't even notice any pain. So it's been a big shock to me how well actually it has worked to do what we needed it to do.
That was the first trial we did, and that was a small trial in the Children's Hospital, and children are only playing it probably for, I think it was like maybe a half an hour, actually even less, could have been around 20 minutes, I think 10 minutes per game. And the range of motion was captured before and after, and the physios, even in that short amount of time, saw like a difference. Like we had kids who were literally doing, as she said, like coming in going, oh, I can't go any further than this. And then when they start playing the game, it was hard to tell which arm was like, injured, like, because they just got so into it. And the physio was saying a lot of it is this belief that they can't go past that point. And if you can get them to kind of understand that they can go a little bit further, that helps with their rehab, but also the engagement factor is a big thing. But we had like the kids, just feeling like they could just do it. And like, as I said, the physios are saying that they saw like a big improvement from one to the next. But the big problem that we saw from after this was we kind of had a bit of a think about it, and we thought, right, this is great, but really the rehabilitation is not really happening in the clinic. They're told what to do once they go into the clinic, obviously, and to do that at home. It's the home part. There's very low adherence for the rehabilitation, and we wanted to kind of see is a way that we could actually get the system to work at home. Now, you might have seen a big laptop and sensors and things like that, and that's just cumbersome, and it's very, very, very hard for staff or for patients to set that stuff up. But thankfully, around the time that we were looking to go for the next step of this, we knew there was a new headset coming out called Oculus Quest, which is a hands-free headset. Don't need any computer, don't need any sensors and things like that. And it's much more easier to set up and to use, and it's cheaper as well. So we wanted to basically port everything to this and give it to the patients to bring home. And well, we thought at first, like, this is going to be easy. We'll just port the game and it'll take us 3 months. I think it was about a year later, we realized that we had to remake everything. So the whole game had to be redone, and we had to go at a very different art style, because the processing power of one of these is, it's like a small mobile phone really, for the first Quest in particular. And it just meant that you're just not going to get it running the way we had it. So we had to remake everything. But while doing that, it allowed us to kind of really double down on making a more fully fledged kind of experience. And it was during COVID as well, so things were put on hold. So we had a little bit extra time to put a bit more polish. And we really, we knew that because this is going to be in children's homes, the children are not going to have staff there or ourselves there to kind of guide them through it. So we put a lot more work into usability and making it like kind of tutorials. And we have a little like buddy that goes around to tell them what to do or how to do it. So we made these new environments and new kind of movements that were required. And we gave it to the kids for, I think it was 3 weeks. And it was similar to the first trial, but just more really. And like the parents, the staff, the kids, they were all finding it was very good. The kids just wanted to play more of it. They were like, before they wouldn't want to do their exercise, but the parents were saying they're coming back going, I want to play like the rehab game. And like they just found it was like they just got into it. I suppose they were engaged in it. Then when it comes to the physios as well, they were finding that it was for more than half of the patients that were doing it. The range of motion from their bad arm at the end of the trial matched their good arm, and that was in like under 3 weeks. So they were very happy with that, because and they were very eager to get this in place. So much so, Sheffield Children's Hospital are now using it in the hospital for physiotherapy, kind of pain distraction in general. But also we've now there recently we're working with Stanford University Hospital in America, and they have it on they have a distribution platform, and they're going to be distributing it across different hospitals in America. So it's great that we're getting it out there. But the next thing we want to do is we want to have we want to get it in medical device regulations for it. So there's a lot more work to be done there, and to get like a national rollout. So that's our next step really, is what we're working on. Moving on from that, so that's the upper limb. Another project we worked on and just recently finished on is to do with amputees learning how to use a prosthetic arm. So you have these really advanced arms. They're quite incredible really. You can tie your shoelaces with them. But they're very heavy and they're very expensive. And the training for getting fitted for one of these is like something from back in the 1950s. It's just this graph lines going up and down, and you see the patients using them and they're just getting frustrated. So in order to use a prosthetic arm, you use myoelectric signals. So when you make a fist, that muscle activity is picked up. So it knows that you're actually generating that muscle activity, and then you can tell the computer that's after happening. And then we can basically translate that to an action is after happening. They're trying to grab something. So close and release. And this is the graph line I was talking about. It's if you've ever heard of the game called Flappy Bird, it's very similar to that, but you're using your 2 different muscle groups to control the graph lines. But it's not as simple as going, I just want to open or I want to close. You need to keep these separate. So those signals you can't be, and it's hard to do. When you start doing it, you realize you use both muscles sometimes, even slightly, but you need to keep them as clean as possible, so only one is happening. And what was happening when they were playing this, they were getting frustrated because it's not that engaging, I suppose, and you die a lot in it. So we wanted to see what could we do with VR regarding this, because embodiment is a huge part of VR. Like just times where you feel like you're the avatar that you're controlling, like if something came at you or came behind you, you kind of flinch like this, like it's your body, which when it's obviously not. And we wanted to see what amputees would, having a virtual representation of the prosthetic in VR while controlling it with myoelectric sensors. Would it help them to learn how to use a prosthetic arm? Because these are very expensive, but there's huge rejection rates. So a lot of people get them and then they don't want them anymore. And it's a huge cost to the NHS. So that was our kind of, is there a way that we can help with that? Just a quick video to give you a bit of context.
It's shaken up the world of games and movies. Virtual reality offers a dive into all-encompassing cyberspace. But back in the real world, gamers are using the same tech for something a bit more serious.
To see the hand there in front of me, but not be wearing a limb, was really surreal. It was really out of this world, if you like.
Kevin lost his arm in an industrial accident 35 years ago. Now he's helping develop a unique project.
So you don't want to put the lid back on the pot?
A kind of try before you buy scheme for artificial limbs.
By contracting the muscles as I normally would do when I'm wearing the normal limb, I was opening and closing the hand and able to move items from one location to another.
Those reflexes enable Kevin to make his electronic limb work. It's a vital decider in whether an amputee's suitable for an expensive prosthetic. But up until now, testing for those reflexes took time and wasn't as fun as VR.
We're talking about a 3-day course to actually go and learn how to use the opening and closing of the hand. And you would be moving shapes, opening doors, making sure that they're making sure that you're capable of using it, and then you're sent away to fend for yourself.
So do you want to go for that Coke can?
That training is even harder if you've never had a limb.
Imagine that for a congenital amputee, they may have never had an arm. So what are those muscles? So like it's very abstract at the moment. It's like imagine grabbing an apple. It's, if you've never done it before, I can imagine it's very difficult to understand what to do.
Ivan's tech could not only speed up the testing, but also train amputees to use the new limb. It's proving a hit with patients.
Some patients said, one in particular said that it's been very emotional being able to see a hand again, but he said in a good way. But he was like, and some of them just didn't want to go out for it. They were like, can I have this and just keep it?
So that first version that we did, we learned a lot from it. And we found that like patients, like one of the patients, the first patient actually, we tried it without VR on and nothing was working. And we kind of thought, oh, okay. Oh, well, I guess we learn these things. But then we said, you might as well try out the VR. And they were hooked up with all the electrodes and everything. And when he put on the VR headset, he saw some apples in front of him. And a few seconds later, just reached down and grabbed them. And we were kind of like very surprised. And we kind of asked, is it because you could see a representation of your hand? Like, you know, what does he think to help with it? And he said, I just saw the apple and I just instinctively just wanted to grab it. And when we spoke to the OTs and that, and they were saying it does normally take a bit of time for people to register the muscle activity, and especially the patients that we had for that first trial, they never had any training before. I think some of them were congenital as well, but like it was like they had no prior fittings done. But yeah, that was it worked quite well for the first trial of this. But we wanted to see about the next stage, so we got NIHR funding to get this. You know, what can we could get this to the next stage? What's required, and can we get this into clinics? Now, at the beginning, we thought we tried to do a lot with this, and there's a lot more work to be done. But what we did is we we use the electrodes that come with the prosthetic arms. So they're Autobot myoelectric sensors. They're quite expensive. So basically we're able to get that 1-to-1. So we know if they're able to use it with the electrodes that come with the prosthetic. Should be a case when they get fitted, then it will work the same way as they expected from the VR. Because there's this big period from when you're told that you can get fitted, or that you can use a myoelectric prosthetic, to actually getting fitted, and you're kind of told to go home and kind of imagine, you know, that muscle activity, what it's like. But this more experience-based training felt more impactful for this. Like, I've actually been able to reach in and grab something with the same electrode, myoelectric signals. But we made these different kind of I suppose activities based on what we're told by the OTs. So box and blocks is one of them. So it was like testing dexterity of moving from blocks from one side to the other, and how quick you can do this. And another thing was, so there's the virtual representation of it. We also updated the visuals of this. One thing that we got from the workshops was regarding how much pressure you put into a grab. So you don't want to be overdoing that every time. You want to be gradually be able to find a sweet spot for opening and closing without exerting too much energy. So they mentioned, what about a paper cup that you could pick up and keep, you know, practicing with it. So that was quite popular with the patients, was to have a cup that we could pick it up, and I'll tell you if you semi-crushed it, crushed it, or didn't crush it at all, and you could just keep doing that over and over. And that was something they quite liked. Another thing we did was we had recipes. So here at the kitchen there, you can see there's a chalkboard, and it'll come up with new recipes every time. So they'd come along and go into the kitchen, into the fridge, get the ingredients that are required, open up the oven. But all the time they're using that same muscle activity, and it's getting that kind of ingrained that they're using that to do what they need to do. And it feels more like experience based. So it's going from something like this, which is, you know, graphs that were really frustrating them, to something like this that's more engaging. Now, we did the trial with this, and we found the biggest thing we found was, and it's down to usability. So this is one of our earlier projects. And when I mentioned about using the electrodes, that was our downfall regarding, like, it could be much better, I feel. We really wanted to go use that headset I showed you earlier with the Quest, which is hands-free, no wires. You need to get away from any of those barriers, really. But because we had a lot of cables, meant we needed a laptop. And because we had it starts building up, and it just gets more cumbersome. And it's just trying to make things as simple as possible. And I think that's where we're going to go next with this, is trying to boil it down to its purest things that are required. And it doesn't need the more expensive cabling that you get for the electrodes. It can be a cheaper alternative. Another project, and moving on from that, that we worked on, is to do with pain distraction. And it kind of runs through with a lot of our projects. The upper limb, lower limb, which you'll see in a moment, is VR is very good for pain. And there's a lot of research out there that's showing it's quite good for pain. And it's particularly around burn patients when they're getting dressings done. There was some research done into this already by the US Army, but it was back when we were working on this. It was back when it was the older headsets, didn't have 360 videos at the time the way they do now, and everything's after coming on a lot. So we wanted to see, could using VR help patients during the burn treatments, which are excruciating. We had a more puzzle-based game, because not everybody likes the same thing. They don't like the same books, the same movies, same games, etc. So we wanted to make sure we had something to kind of count to help with those different kind of groups. We also had 360 videos, so that's more passive, where you're just watching stuff happening, whereas these are more interactive. And we built these around the requirements of the patients, so the limitations. So when we did the observations at the hospital, we realized the patients were actually lying down, did very limited movement. They could only hold, say, one button, like a small remote, if even. And so we built all the design around those limitations. So we made sure that if the head tracking is how you actually control everything, where you're looking, and you have like one mouse button to press in order to activate something. And that's how we designed around those needs. And And then what we did next is we did a test with healthy volunteers first, and what we did was use a cold pressor test to get an idea of the pain threshold and tolerance. And we found with when you were using the VR with the passive, let's say they're 5 minutes is the max they're allowed to be in it. I could only last a minute in general with this when I was testing it because I'm terrible tolerance. But they were, say, when they were using it with the passive VR, they were lasting maybe a minute and a half, I think it was. And when they're doing it with the active VR, where like they're actually doing stuff, they were lasting the 5 minutes. Some people said they could have kept it in there for as long as they needed. Now, when they took their hand out, it was absolutely, really cold, because this is recirculated water. It's I think it was 4 degrees or something like that. But this is a safe way to test for pain threshold and tolerance. Then we went to STH and we trialed out this with the patients here. And here's just a quick video that goes into a little bit detail about that.
It was an intense burning sensation that it just made you feel like it was just going further and further into your skin and deeper. Hello Megan, you alright?
Last November, Megan Moxon suffered severe burns to her legs when a washing up bowl filled with boiling water fell into her lap. The 19-year-old's injuries needed regular dressing changes, which she found extremely painful.
So you can pop this on.
Megan was invited to take part in a new trial to see whether playing specifically designed games in the immersive world of virtual reality, or VR, might help with the pain.
Without the VR, I've been nearly in tears because it's that painful. But with the VR, Michelle would be able to prod it, poke it, put a bit of pressure on it, and I wouldn't feel a thing.
One day, a virtual world could help those with pain in the real world. Jamie Coulson, BBC News.
So just explain to us, Dr. Faisal, if you could, what's going on with your brain when you're feeling pain and when you're watching one of these?
So as you know, sort of intuitively, when you have this experience of pain, it's all-encompassing from an attention perspective. So that's pretty much all you can concentrate on at that moment in time when you're going through sort of acute pain. So what the virtual reality starts to do is it starts to compete for that attention. So in the brain, you've essentially started to take away from those resources that are involved in processing the pain, and you're starting to dedicate them towards processing the information in the environment.
It was surprising. Like, I know there was obviously research out there already about this, but we were surprised at how effective it is for pain. But it won't remove pain. It'll help you tolerate it. So that's kind of important to note as well. Like, it's not going to just go, it's gone. But when we had, like, for instance, we had one patient and they were in a car crash up in the Peaks and very badly burnt. Like, their whole side was burnt. And the nurses, they rang asking could we come in because nothing was working with them. And they wanted to try everything they could, really. And he had a lot of staples. The head sister said it was a bit ridiculous. They said it was like 100 staples in or something. And said like they shouldn't have done that when they were, I think they're doing a grafting. And they were removing the staples, and they said that when they were doing it, like the patient was like laughing while playing the game, like, and talking to the staff. And I remember one of the staff members going, "Did you not feel that?" And it was like, "No." And she was kind of looking puzzled to the rest of the staff, going, "I was really going for it. I don't understand this." Like, and the head sister said that it wasn't like it was taking. It doesn't allow them to do it quicker. Sorry. Yeah, it's taking the same amount of time to do it, but they were getting through way more like work during the same period of time, which is like, they're getting through more staples or getting through more of the cleaning of the dead skin and things like that. So yeah, it's something that we want to do more work on. There's a lot of people looking at this area, but most people are looking at passive VR, which is it's much more cost-effective way of doing VR, which you just have a 360 video. But I really do think that, and that there is a lot of research out there that shows that the immersive VR does actually kind of help a lot more with this. Moving on for another project, and is to do with lower limb rehabilitation. So once we finished the upper limb rehabilitation, it was literally the day we're packing up. the physio said, if you think this is bad regarding the upper limb, come out here to the hallway. All those people sitting around there, they're waiting to get lower limb rehabilitation done. And said it's a big problem, and if there's anything that you could think of to look into and to work together at lower limb, it'd be great. Because it's obviously very painful. After surgery, they have to come out. I think it's the next morning, they have to get up on that leg and be weight bearing on it to help get it healing as quick as possible. And for kids who are a bit more anxious, they just don't want to do that. And it's understandable, like, you know, you're very tender, it's very early, and you're told you need to have to walk after getting surgery. It's the last thing you really want to do. Some kids are great, like, you know, as in like they don't have that fear, they'll just get up and walk. Which was kind of funny when we started doing our first observations. The first 2 children we saw had no problems. And I was like thinking, is this actually something that we should be even doing? They seem to have no problem. But they were saying that was just kids that were like very, very active, that were like, you know, football players and things like that. But other kids then we started seeing had a big problem. We want to see then with VR, really, what could we do there? So initially we're thinking, how do we make a game about walking for 5 minutes? Because that's how long it had to be. And we were like, because normally the controllers, they're in your hand, and that's the way they're designed to be. You're not meant to, that's all there is. So we thought, okay, what if we had these on your legs and we could track where the legs were? What kind of games could we make out of that? That would map with the exercise. And we were thinking, what about like whack-a-mole and things like that? And that's just going to be boring. And someone said, what if we gave them like, you know, powerful legs, like they were like Iron Man or something like that? And then ideas started flowing. Oh, kind of giving them like this empowerment that they're like this powerful mech, and then it's an alien invasion. And we wanted to make it as bombastic as possible. There's all this stuff happening that they're just focused on going ahead and defeating the enemy in it. And what we did is, as they're walking along, we have a lot of stuff encouraging them to keep walking. There's stuff happening that's kind of, they don't realize it, but there's stuff kind of luring them forward the whole time. And then when they pick up something new, it's cooler than the last thing. So everything's just getting incrementally better. So it's like, that idea of the next thing is going to be better. I need to get to see the next bit of this. And then this enemy comes along as well. But we spent a lot of time making a 5-minute game. But this video kind of gives it a bit of an idea how that worked.
So just keep walking down the road. Once you see those monsters, just try to aim at them.
12-year-old Noel is killing monsters and escaping spiders, all within the confines of a corridor at Sheffield Children's Hospital.
It hurts a bit.
He has a rare condition, a venous malformation in his right leg. It means constant operations to help him walk. And after those surgeries, he needs a lot of physiotherapy.
Tell me when it gets really tight.
There.
But using a VR headset to play a game has made that physiotherapy so much more pleasant.
You have to walk through a street, like, you just have to shoot monsters by looking at them, and at the end you get to fight a big monster with these yellow targets, and if you get all the yellow targets, you'll be able to win the game.
Do you forget that you're actually walking?
I don't realise how far I'm walking because I'm so concentrated on the game with my score.
It's been a massive difference for me because, I mean, the anxiety of knowing that your child's going to be having a lot of pain trying to get out of bed initially, and then trying to get him to actually do a few more steps and, you know, pushing them. It's been nice having him look forward to something, because generally he dreads the physio sessions after an operation, but mention of the VR, he was waking up excited, looking forward to his next session.
And just let me know if it's blurry or clear.
The virtual reality game is used for children who've undergone lower limb and knee surgery to help overcome the discomfort of traditional physio. Noel has been one of the first patients to try it, and it helps him get back to being able to enjoy activities he loves, like being the goalie in games of football.
He has a condition where he's got overgrowth of one of his limbs, which is as a result of having a proliferation of blood vessels in the leg itself, which has caused problems with bleeding inside the knee and effects on the cartilage and pain and difficulty with his function, as well as overgrowth of the limb itself.
What was your reaction when you were told they've got a video game for your patients?
I wanted to have a go myself. We were always looking for ways to make things better for the kids when they come through after surgery.
The game was developed over 2 years by a team at Sheffield Hallam University.
I just said something I said earlier on, so there's no point seeing that again. So regarding that system, we worked with physios throughout making that to kind of understand what kind of, make sure we're getting the gait right and things like that, and how are we going to make sure they don't go into the wall. We even got like crutches from the hospital, and we must have looked a bit unusual going around the office with a headset on and crutches while we were testing out things. But when we tried it with the patients, they didn't realize that they were walking as far. They found it just comfortable to walk normally, and which was a concern of mine. Would the gait be right? The physios felt, yeah, it was exactly what they wanted. Now there's a lot of work we need to do on that still. So that's the first version, and we're working on towards getting like a lot more refinement on that, and learning on what the feedback that we got. That I think we can make it much more robust and like full featured. So just briefly, I just want to go over some projects that we're currently working on or that are nearly finished. One is to do around dysphasia. It's for patients after usually after stroke, have problems swallowing. We spoke to speech and language therapists at STH about this, and they were saying at the moment, you know, to get things like electric shock, kind of electric, not shock, I suppose, electric treatment on the larynx to kind of force a swallow. And was there anything that we could look at in this area? So they said that one of their colleagues had a success with showing a patient a videoscopy of them swallowing a liquid, because when they rewatched this later while trying to eat, they just found it quite useful. So kind of thought about this and thought, so if a pre-recorded video of seeing yourself swallow was helpful, how would that work for something that was more like, you know, real time? So you're actually seeing yourself swallow while you're doing it, like you can actually see the larynx and how far it's going. So we decided to work with a company to kind of make a device to track the larynx, and we wanted to recreate that then in VR. So if we know where the larynx is, we can then show it to the person as they're playing in the VR headset. They can see in real time it happening. So imagine on that screen, they can kind of see inside their body, and as they swallow, each time they swallow, they can actually see that in real time. While also we wanted to do another part of this was to map the swallow to an action. So usually it's a trigger button if you want to shoot something in a game, like, you know, let's say this is a basketball game and you want the basket to go, you press the trigger or you press enter on the keyboard or something like that. But instead of that, it's the actual act of swallowing will actually enable the throwing of the ball in this case. I'll show a video because it'll give a little bit of information. So this is just a tech demo. So you can see down here with this graph, there's like the red lines. So that when that spikes, that shows that you're after making like it's actually going past the baseline, and you've got a swallow that's a clear swallow. So they have like the idea, we want them to kind of forget about the swallowing and think more about the game and just practice on doing that. So we're currently trialing this at the moment at STH, and it's like, I'm not quite sure the full data on it yet. My biggest concern about it is any like false positives and things like that. So it's something that we want to look into. But so far it seems to be going well. Like they're liking the experience, and they feel it's helping them with their swallows. But yeah, there's a lot more data we need on this kind of before I can kind of go into more detail on it, because we need to see if it works or not to where we want it to. But I do think the hardware itself probably needs a bit more work personally, just based on kind of early feedback. But yeah, it's just to kind of replace the idea of having to get electric shocks every time, you know, you're being treated for dysphagia. Surely there's a better way than doing that. Another project we're working on, I know we're getting very close to the time here, but I'll just tear through this last bit, is to do with social anxiety. And we're working with the Children's Hospital again with this, and it's to get kids exposed to difficult situations, be it like people their own age coming towards them in the street. It could be purchasing something in the shop. It could be unusual things happening that they weren't expecting. But we also want to have coping mechanisms in there as well. So we're embedding these coping mechanisms into the gameplay itself with a heart rate monitor as well, to kind of get, so we can kind of find out when something's after happening from in the game, we can then map it against the act that what actually happened. So let's say, for instance, in this video you see in a second, as they're walking down the street, I hope this is not too loud. 1 second. As they're walking down the street, we can be capturing their heart rate and say to turn the corner, and then the dog is after starting, the heart rate's going to go up, and then we can give them some coping mechanism things there to do with things like square breathing or the balloon one. We're just changing it up a little bit here with this image here. But and then going into the shop, they don't have the right change, things like that. So we're still working on it. It's still early days. It's an early prototype, and we're going to do a play test with this soon. And then last but not least is a project we're working with the Children's Hospital in Sheffield and Leeds Hospital as well. It's around making a system to help kids with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy to do their calf stretches. So they've seen the work we did with the upper limb, and they wanted to kind of, and it's very important that they do their calf stretches because it kind of staves off the effects of the Duchenne's. But they kind of wondered, is there a way that we could kind of do what we did with the upper limb for this? But when we looked into it, we kind of quickly realized these kids have very, what's the word, they're not as stable because of the condition. And I didn't feel quite right about doing calf stretches up against a wall, or like the different ways of doing it, and that they do it correctly, but also would they, you know, I didn't want them to fall over and stuff like that. So what we've done instead is something very different, and probably our most ambitious thing that we've created is we've separated the game from the exercise. So we're trying to make a very engaging game. You're basically Spider-Man in the game. And it's very entertaining. There's lots happening. So it's like almost a full-fledged game. But the exercise part of it is where basically, if you've ever heard of microtransactions in video games, they're normally a bad thing. It's like where the game tries to get you to spend extra money to get cool things for the game. So what we're doing instead is the exercise is how you unlock the cool things in the game. So it could be any exercise you're doing. So in this case, it's calf stretches. And we basically have this big vault that opens up, and it gives them these kind of new abilities to use in the game. And then as long as the game's engaging, we want this kind of feedback loop where they'll play the game to get more money and then come back in to buy more things. And then it's this kind of, they do it a lot in mobile games and stuff like that to kind of get people purchasing more stuff. So that's kind of what we're looking at with that. There's a lot more work to be done on that, but we're getting there. This is not everybody. These are just some of the people that have helped us in Sheffield Children's Hospital and Sheffield Teachers Hospital throughout these projects. There's a lot more people, but it's just to give a bit of an idea. And then at Leeds as well. And obviously then our core team, Impact VR, Jude and Kent and Alicia, and there's obviously Dr. Penny Furness, who's helped us a lot of these projects as well. And then we also have the funders, MRC and NIHR and the hospitals. Like without all those, none of this would be possible. Like it really is a collaborative effort. Like, but yeah, that's kind of, I know it's a lot of information and a lot of different things, but it's I hope it gives a better an idea of how much potential there is in this kind of space, and it can be applied to all sorts of things. It's not just rehab, like. But yeah.